Electoral Matters begins the news tonight. The National Independent Electoral Commission, INEC, resumed nationwide continuous voter registration, kicking off the second phase of the exercise. The new phase began on Monday after the first phase ended on December the 10th, 2025. INEC earlier opened online pre-registration on August the 18th, 2025, followed by physical registration at centers nationwide from August the 25th. The Commission says over 9.89 million Nigerians started online pre-registration in the first phase, with more than 2.57 million registration fully completed by November 28, 2025. This includes more than 1.5 million completed online and more than 1.06 million done in person. Now, the House of Representatives has concluded amendments to the Electoral Act well ahead of the next general election cycle. Lawmakers say the early action is aimed at avoiding previous delays that resulted in withheld presidential assent, while also responding to long-standing concerns over electoral credibility, especially among young Nigerians. Let's turn now to our political analyst, Dr. Sam Amadi, for this conversation. Thank you very much for being here with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
If nearly 10 million Nigerians showed interest, but only 2.6 finished registration, is that not perhaps a monumental failure by INEC? Or who is to blame, or what is to blame for this lack of conclusion?
I think first it speaks to the nature, how arduous, how difficult, maybe time constraining, and the process of registration to vote is. I would argue that one of the ways to boost voter turnout and voter participation is also to simplify both registration and voting. So if you look at the data around those who initiated and completed, so it tells you a story around, simplifying the procedure. What will make people indicate interest to register to vote and midway truncate it? It could be that it takes a long period, several stages, maybe detailed information that are not available, or even maybe internet connectivity issues and all that. So there is both a technical challenge, logistic process challenge, as well as enthusiasm problem. So some people say maybe these guys are not even enthusiastic at all. Maybe so. Two levels. One is a level of, is this simple? We are living in an age of short attention span. That's why short messages, SMS, and others are replacing text essays, and as well as possible, even scholars are not trying to write in monosyllable, as it were, short, because people cannot penetration for too long. And so that is that's sociological reality should impact on how we design registration portals. And sometimes it takes too long. You need to wait to complete, and then you need to get INEC feedback, and then back and forth. In the last election, that those who registered could not complete, and had to wait for permanent voter register. They never got it, and there was question around, can they use a temporary voter card? So I think this calls for massive simplification. I don't have argued that perhaps we use our national ID.
So, but is it enough to call for simplification, or are there specific areas or stages in the process that you think might require review? That is, if you are very familiar with the process of online registration. And then add to that, because I don't want to miss asking you this, there's been a lot of talk around the political situation in the country. I wrote it as you were speaking. Is there any bearing to claims that this whole non-full participation, completing the online registration process, might be more with disillusionment with the current political climate, or it's more a technical reason? So the question is...
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I think they're both. So at the first instance, why would people, it's not from question to answer, why would anybody initiate and not finish. One could be enthusiasm deficit. So if you are very enthusiastic, then you could go through your pain threshold, your patience threshold is longer. So you could go through the process and wait it out and still register. For example, during the last registration exercise, when the immediate movement was on and a lot of young people were going in, people struggled. People even asked INEC to extend registration. People went everywhere, complained they have not got their PVC because they were eager to vote. So enthusiasm deficit is a function of the fact that many Nigerians, especially young Nigerians, are voting down on the prospect of credible election. And again, politicians, maybe for good reason, personal selfish interest, mistake election formula, routine periodic event with election in the sense in which non-politicians will see it, which is the possibility of changing outcome. So if election means that there's no possibility of changing outcomes, then you're going to see people vote down on election, including registering, new registration will be low, turning out to vote, and staying on to finally vote. So there are many phenomena. One is that people are not interested to register. So the registration rate is low. Even when people register with all the also alleged mass registration, where some people register dummies, you discover that the number of persons, percentage of people who vote actually come out to vote and accredit is lower, very low. Then the people who actually vote, so if many people don't come out to vote, even when they're registered voters, because they're not enthusiastic, some come out to accredit, but never get to vote. So those people who could vote, who had initial enthusiasm to register and didn't, finalize, are largely persons who are kind of turned back, discouraged by the sacrifice, by the time or the process they have to engage, and maybe because of lack of political education, enlightenment, some people encounter, what look like a difficulty in the process, they give up. So a couple of things. One is that people are generally discouraged about politics not because politics is violent, it's even increasingly less so in Nigeria now, but more because politics offers no alternative. The reason why people want to vote is to vote in somebody they like or vote out somebody they don't want. And if there's no prospect of voting in anybody because the system is not credible, then there's no incentive to register. Again, some people also, because their own enthusiasm is very low, that they can't pay the cost of going through a system that requires some bit of patience, some bit of attention, some bit of process and waiting. If they encounter any difficulty or any delay, a timeout, because they are not interested. So it's both a technical process. If you simplify it, just like voting, I mean, people accredit and spend hours, maybe come to the line by 8 o'clock, and then you stay on till around 2, 3, 4, spend 5 hours to vote. Few people, especially in a country where
because we're time pressed for this conversation. I'm trying to interject quickly. I want your thoughts on Anambra and FCT continuous voter registration exercise being suspended for now. Wouldn't that put them at a disadvantage because the time frame, or do you think maybe when the suspension is lifted, INEC will extend the time? What are your thoughts on that dynamic?
Usually, INEC has said, so what happens at close to election, INEC shuts down because they need to do some in-house planning, structuring, and preparing the voter list and displaying them for verification and correction. So I think it makes sense to suspend registration at a time. It's a window. It's well designed in INEC timeline that a few weeks to or a few months to election, INEC shuts down registration of new voters and only those who have registered to vote. Even the general election, INEC does that. So it's not really a problem. It's not with bad effect. It's basically to shut down, to prepare the voter list, to process the accreditation, display for comments and rectification before voting. So I think that makes sense.
Scale of 1 to 10, if you were to assess based on what we know about the continuous registration exercise, do you think that INEC will be able to conclude in time to ensure that less Nigerians are disenfranchised and more are in the process to be able to vote?
And then maybe 4. You see, INEC never...
That is not a pass. That is not a pass at all.
Yes, it's intended to be a failing mark. See, INEC never properly optimizes lessons of previous elections. So there's no activity. People don't even know information network. INEC is brutalized after the mishap of 2023 and the loss of credibility. INEC is tiptoeing. INEC is not gung-ho. INEC is not courageous. INEC is kind of beaten. So you don't see, people don't feel INEC. People don't feel a sense that a voter is out there. INEC campaigns is poor, information network is very bad, and credibility is very low. So I'll give them, well, they are pushing me maybe 3. Actually, it's more representative of 4 than I can talk. 3 over 10 looks more like it.
Especially as everybody's, being energized ahead of 2027. A lot of politicking is happening. But let's see what happens and just keep hope alive, I guess. Thank you very much for obliging us tonight.
Thank you so much.
Coming up, Rivers State Deputy Governor defects from PDP to ruling APC. Details of this story and more when we return. You're watching tonight on News Central. A reminder of our top stories. INEC resumes continuous voter registration across the country as second phase of exercise begins. House of Representatives Speaker Tajudeen Abbas condoles with victims of Yobe State boat kidnap. Ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro claims he was kidnapped as he pleads not guilty to all 4 charges against him. Rivers State Deputy Governor Professor Ngozi Odu has formally left the People's Democratic Party for the All Progressive Congress, joining his boss, Governor Fubara, who defected a few weeks ago. She said the decision followed Governor Fubara's recent move to the APC and is aimed at strengthening support for the president and the governor at the grassroots. Odu registered on Sunday in Akaboka, Ogba, Egbema, Ndoni local government area and toured all 6 local government zones to promote the APC's ongoing e-registration drive. During the tour, hundreds of Labour Party members in Ndoni also joined the APC. Also, the secretary through the state government, Benibo Anabraba, has resigned from the PDP. Some former governors elected on the platform of the People's Democratic Party have defected to the ruling All Progressive Congress over the years, citing political realignment and strategic interest. Here are the list of some of them. In April 2025, Delta State Governor Sheriff Eburuwari defected from the PDP to the APC, becoming one of the most recent high-profile crossovers. This was followed in June 2025 by Akwa Ibom State Governor Umar Eno, who also announced his departure from the PDP. The trend dates back several years. Former Ebonyi State Governor Dave Umahi defected in November 2020, while former Cross River State Governor Ben Ayadi followed in May 2021. In June 2021, former Zamfara Governor Bello Matawale also switched allegiance to the APC. In December 2025, Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara defected from the PDP to the APC, marking a major political shift in the oil-rich state. That same month, Osun State Governor Ademola Adeleke also left the PDP for the APC, ending years of alignment with the opposition party in the Southwest. The National Secretary of the All Progressive Congress, Ajibola Basiru, and the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, have now locked horns. This followed a remark by the APC chieftain asking the former Rivers State Governor to resign his ministerial appointment and focus on the Rivers State politics. Basiru says Wike is not a member of the APC and has no standing to interfere in its affairs, insisting that the sitting governors must be respected as party leaders in their states, including Rivers Governor Siminalayi Fubara. The FCT Minister has swiftly responded, warning the APC Secretary to steer clear of Rivers politics, noting that the state is a no-go area for external interference. Prominent activist Aisha Yusufu has officially registered as a member of the African Democratic Congress ADC, becoming a card-carrying member of the party. Yusufu says her decision is tied to her support for former Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi as political alignments begin to take shape ahead of the 2027 general elections. She also urged young Nigerians to participate actively in politics, stressing that youth involvement is key to achieving good governance. Yusufu added that she is willing to work with others, provided their values and objectives align.
Mr. Peter Obi came officially and brought his people, his allies, his friends, his supporters, and officially declared for ADC. And on that day, I said to him, I have never been a card-carrying member of any political party. But because my leader has called, I will do that. At the state we are in our country, it is no longer just an option for us to be in political parties. It's a necessity for our country to be able to grow. I've always said that politics is not a romantic affair. I'm not looking for people that we are in love with or we love each other. We might not love each other, we might not like each other, but we have a singularity of purpose, and that's to give Nigeria good governance.
President Bola Tinubu, you are recklessly borrowing money. You are recklessly spending the money. You are recklessly taxing us, we citizens. So this is a message for you. By 2020.
Also, the All Progressive Congress has now seemed to be the only destination for all Kano state government appointees, effectively folding the new Nigeria People's Party structure to the APC in the state. This followed the defection of 484 former ward councillors led by Commissioner for Information and Internal Affairs Ibrahim Waya, who visited the new NNPP state chairman Abdullahi Zubairu Abiya in Kano. Waya told journalists that the move has the backing of the governor and the party's national leader, Rabiu Kwakwenso.
Leader that we've been pleading with them, and we've been also sending our own request to them to kindly move from NNPP to APC, because many of the party stakeholders across the state, the appointees, the elected in the state, we all have believed that this is the best political decision that the Kano State government should actually consider or should actually take. The leadership of the NPP and the coordination of the national leader, Dr. Rabi Musa Konkasos, to consider this request, because it is a request that emanated from the people. And this is democracy. Democracy is a practice of governance where the requests of the people are considered, where the demand of the people are also considered, because that is what constitutes democracy. People are the ones that actually constitute democracy. They are the ones that give authority and power to those elected or to those appointed. So and they're the same people that are now demanding and requesting their own leaders to move or defect from NNPP to FCT, because we feel this is the best, I think, way to go about it, especially as the election is nearing. 2027 election is coming closer, and this is the best way that I think we feel that Kano State can actually be safer, be more secure, be more peaceful.
Democracy in Nigeria has often been shaped by laws, their implementation and the timing of those laws, especially the Electoral Act, which guides the conduct of elections. In this report by our correspondent Idong Joseph, we examined the recently concluded Electoral Act amendment exercise at the House of Representatives and why timing matters for its conclusion following past legislative delays.
Electoral reform in Nigeria for years has followed a similar pattern of intense debates, late conclusions, and presidential rejection. In some cases, the cost of these delays have had national implications. For instance, in 2018, during the Bukola Saraki and Yakubu Dogora-led parliaments, amendment to the Electoral Act was rejected by the then President Muhammadu Buhari over claims that they were too close to the general elections.
I hereby convey to the Senate my decision on 6 December 2018 to decline presidential assent to the Electoral Amendment Bill 2018 recently passed by the National Assembly. I am declining assent to the bill principally because I am concerned that passing a new electoral bill this far into the electoral process for the 2019 general elections, which commenced under the 2015 Electoral Act, could create some uncertainty about the applicable legislation to govern the process.
Under the 8th Assembly, leadership disagreements and prolonged negotiations slowed the reform process despite its legislative intent, which later became a valid excuse.
The issue of consistency with card reader and the bimodal machine. So my concern now is that...
Fast forward to today, months after intense committee work, public hearings and clause-by-clause consideration, the House of Representatives has concluded amendment to the Electoral Act well ahead of the next general elections cycle.
The Electoral Act 2022 remains one of the most progressive electoral law in our history, and the amendment proposed under this Electoral Bill 2025 are designed to consolidate its strengths, address observed gaps, and improve implementation without undermining the stability of the existing legal framework. I want to assure Nigerians that the House Committee on Electoral Matters has conducted its process with utmost transparency and diligence.
While the House has concluded its part of the amendment process as of December 2025, the Senate adjourned for its end-of-the-year recess without commencing deliberation on the bills.
65 carried.
With the experience of the 8th Assembly now serving as a cautionary tale, time is no longer accidental but strategic, as plenary is scheduled to resume on the 27th of January 2026.
Mr. Chairman, I want to suggest...
In Abuja for News Central, Idong Joseph.
Now to one of our top stories tonight. Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajudeen Abbas, has expressed deep sadness over a boat mishap that claimed the lives of 29 people and left several others injured in Yobe State, northeast Nigeria. In a condolence message issued on Monday by his Special Advisor on Media and Publicity, Musa Krishi, the Speaker lamented the tragic incident, which occurred on Saturday at Garbi town in Nguru local government area of the state. Abbas extended his heartfelt condolences to the families of the victims as well as the governor of Yobe State, describing the incident as a painful loss not only to the affected communities but to the nation at large. Fresh concerns are emerging over the state of road safety and emergency response in Nigeria, as data from the Federal Road Safety Corps shows that the nation's roads claim thousands of lives every year. While calls grow for stronger government policies to protect commuters, experts say urgent action is needed on road emergency infrastructure. Our correspondent Joshua Imarai has more in this report. Bring you that package in a bit, but let's go ahead and bring you this story from Sudan. Dozens of Sudanese have fled escalating violence to Kosti, south of Khartoum, describing harrowing journeys marked by hunger and thirst. Many escaped from Helglig, home to Sudan's largest oil field, trekking through forests without food or water. Refugees say they drank from livestock ponds after crossing the South Sudan border twice as RSF paramilitary fighters advanced on their communities. Short break. The news continues right after. Thank you for staying with us. The deposed leader of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, pleaded not guilty to all 4 counts against him in New York on Monday. The charges include drug terrorism conspiracy, cocaine importation conspiracy, and possession of machine guns and destructive devices. He was taken by helicopter from a federal jail in Brooklyn to Manhattan early Monday. Flag-waving protesters, both opposing and celebrating Maduro's capture rallied in the cold outside a courthouse separated by police. Meanwhile, hundreds of Maduro supporters gathered outside a courthouse to protest his capture. I'm now joined by global policy analyst Alexander von Rugen for the latest as it's playing out in the New York court. Thank you very much for being here. Is it even legal for the president of one country to be taken to another country to face trial when it's not The Hague, when it's not a UN-sanctioned body? Your thoughts?
Well, this has happened before. In fact, it's almost a cookie cutter to what happened before. In 1989, President Noriega of Panama was accused of the identical crime, and he was renditioned into America and stood trial. Also, the loophole at that time that America used, it was a Department of Justice charge. It wasn't a military action, quote unquote. An FBI agent went in with the backup of the U.S. military to protect the extraction team. Of course, the extraction team was likely a Black Ops military outfit, SEALs or Delta Force, much like in Maduro's case. He was extracted. In fact, the U.S. government has a special term for it. We call it rendition. So everyone else would call it kidnapping. But he was brought to Miami, stood trial, and was convicted to 40 years. In the case of Maduro, again, he was charged or indicted in absentia in 2020. A bounty was put on his head of $50 million. And it was the Department of Justice-led team that went into Caracas to arrest him. Now, of course, the optics on this looked like it was a full-scale military operation, which in effect it was. But the government narrative on it from the U.S. is that U.S. forces were there to clear a corridor so that the extraction by the Department of Justice could be done safely for the people involved. And they're sticking by that story.
I mean, he says he has been kidnapped, yet he is making a plea of not guilty and then choosing not to seek a bail. What are your thoughts as to this strategy? Is it a legal strategy, or is it a way of asserting his claims that perhaps the U.S. are overreaching?
He didn't apply for bail because he wouldn't have gotten it anyway. He's definitely a risk of flight, especially when he's been renditioned to come into the country. The nature of his crime and his stature would dictate that as well. The fact that he's claiming he was kidnapped, I mean, he's appealing to his base in Venezuela with the hopes that he'll get sympathy and support both in his own country and, of course, globally. I'm sure there are a lot of dictators around the world that are sleeping with one eye open right now.
Okay, Maduro's son has come out to tell the world that his father has been kidnapped and is seeking international collaboration and help. I think the word he used was international solidarity. What would an international solidarity look like beyond the current statements being issued from Africa to China and Russia and the likes?
Knee-jerk reactions. They have to say, we oppose this, just like they did when Noriega was brought into America. But the precedent's been set. He used the diplomatic immunity defense, and regardless, he was charged. Under U.S. court, they have what they call a care frisbee doctrine, which dictates that the method of transport doesn't bar jurisdiction, although it can be contested. So in other words, you can be kidnapped to be brought into the United States to stand trial, and the court is not going to take that into consideration in determining guilt or innocence. So as far as international support goes, I think it is a knee-jerk reaction because under UN guidelines and international law, the appearance of the U.S. breaking the rules is quite strong. The U.S. position is we've done this before. We bent the rules. We were successful, and that's why we're doing it again. It's interesting from the international perspective here that one of Maduro's strongest allies, Russia, has said very, very little. And if we read between the lines here into deep, dark politics, one would wonder, has a deal been made, or was there a deal made between Trump and Putin trading off on perhaps the Ukraine war or taking control of Venezuela? That's
happening now.
It hasn't been explored yet.
Thank you very much, Alexander, as always, for being here with us.
My pleasure.
In a related development, Colombian President Gustavo Petro has pledged to defend his country against any potential U.S. military intervention, warning he would personally take up arms if necessary. His statement comes after U.S. President Donald Trump threatened Colombia following the capture of Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro in a U.S. operation. Petro condemned the threats as illegal interference in Colombia's internal affairs, citing international law, and emphasized his government's efforts to combat drug trafficking without militarized approaches. He called on citizens to protect the presidency from illegitimate violent acts and expressed strong confidence in the Colombian people to resist external pressures. A short break, and when we return, we'll have business, sports, and entertainment news for you.
This segment is brought to you by MoneyPoint.
Nigeria's current account surplus is projected to rise to $18.81 billion in 2026, equivalent to 11.16% of GDP. This is according to Central Bank of Nigeria's 2026 macroeconomic outlook. This compares with an estimated surplus of $16.94 billion or 10.94% of GDP in 2025. The CBN said stronger oil and non-oil export earnings alongside higher remittance inflows will support the balance. Goods exports are expected to increase to $58.26 billion, driven by improved crude oil production and expanding agricultural and fertilizer exports. However, higher imports, wider services deficits, and rising investment income outflows are expected to persist, partly offsetting the gains. Revenues of Egypt's public business sector rose 20% to 126 billion Egyptian pounds in the fiscal year 2024 and 2025, while consolidated net profits reached nearly 24 billion Egyptian pounds. The Ministry of Public Business Sector said exports climbed 27% to about $1 billion, supported by improved operational performance in private sector partnerships. The ministry noted that the market value of state-owned firms listed on the Egyptian exchange increased 36% as several companies returned to profitability. The gains align with Egypt's IPO and divestment program, which aims to expand private sector participation, boost local manufacturing, and support long-term economic growth under the state ownership policy. We will be back with Market Report after this break. You're welcome back, and it's time for the Stock Market Report. Well, the Nigerian exchange closed today's session on a strong note with bullish sentiment dominating trading. Now, the all-share index advanced by 1.74% and it closed at 159,218.22 points, and the market capped out at 101.8 trillion naira. Now, gains were broad-based across key sectors, led by the insurance and banking indices, reflecting renewed investor confidence. Let's take a closer look at the numbers and sectoral performance, So let's say what's happening here. Now, the banking sector closed in green at 4.71%. Insurance here is leading the charge today, closing at 4.97%. Also in the green, oil and gas closed at 3.75%. Consumer goods also up by 2.06%. And industrial goods closed at a very minimal 0.95%, but in the green nonetheless. So as you can see behind me, it's all green flags today. Well, that wraps it up on the Nigerian exchange, with financial stocks leading the charge and gains spreading across major sectors. The market closed firmly in bullish territory. The big question now is whether this momentum reflects a sustained shift in investor confidence or just a tactical rally. As always, sentiment and liquidity and earnings expectations will hold the final verdict. That's all on Business Tonight. My name is Chamun Dabeng.
Hello and welcome to Sports. Seven-time African champions Egypt endured a stern test of their title credentials, but ultimately overcame Benin Republic 3-1 to qualify for the quarterfinals of the Africa Cup of Nations. Al Ahly midfielder Marwan Atia fired home from the edge of the box in the 69th minute after Mohamed Hani cut back, but substitute striker Jodel Dosu scored a late equalizer in the 83rd minute to take the match into extra time. Yasser Ibrahim of Egypt put Egypt back in the lead, planting his close-range header into the top corner of the net in the 97th minute, leaving Benin goalkeeper Marcel Danjinu helpless. The two-time African Footballer of the Year, Mohamed Salah, finished off a lightning counter-attack, adding in added time to seal the win. In an ongoing encounter between Nigeria and Mozambique, Nigeria currently leading by 4 goals to nothing, with the match currently in the latter stages, Victor Osimhen scoring 2 goals in that game. Elsewhere, Manchester United have sacked manager Ruben Amorim, while former midfielder Darren Fletcher will take charge for Wednesday's Premier League game against Burnley. The squad will remain in place until a caretaker appointment, with the club planning to name a permanent successor for Amorim in the summer. The decision comes after tensions are reportedly growing between Manchester United board and Ruben Amorim, with relations between the director of football, Jason Wilcox, and Amorim at breaking point. Manchester United sits 6th in the Premier League table just after the halfway point of the season, and are on the back of 2 underwhelming draws at home to Wolves and also at Leeds United. Amorim have told that United's 10th manager since Sir Alex Ferguson left the club in 2013. Super Eagles striker Cyril Dessers has been ruled out for up to 3 months after sustaining a thigh injury during Nigeria's Africa Cup of Nations campaign. Head coach Eric Schell confirmed ahead of the clash against Mozambique. Dessers withdrew from the tournament after picking up the injury, and Schell revealed that he will be sidelined for up to 10 or 12 weeks. The injury means that the 31-year-old Panathinaikos striker has still not represented Nigeria at a major international tournament since making his debut in 2020 in a 1-1 draw against Tunisia in an international friendly under former coach Gernot Rohr. And that's all we have on Sports Tonight. Entertainment is up next.
All right, now let's dive right into entertainment. Now, the Lagos State Police Command says it has opened an investigation into Pastor Chris Okafor, the founder of Grace Nation Church International, following sexual misconduct allegations circulating online. We know that conversation has been on for a couple of weeks now. Now, Pastor Okafor has denied the claims, calling them false and malicious, and insists they are aimed at damaging his reputation and the ministry. He has also appealed to public to allow the police to carry out their investigation without bias. The case has since fueled intense online debate, reopening conversations around accountability and how allegations against influential faith leaders should be handled by the law. Now, that's a conversation that's still ongoing, and we'll definitely be here to bring you the updates. Now, superstar Jennifer Lopez has officially announced a special 25th anniversary edition for her iconic album, J-Lo, marking a major milestone in her career. Originally released in 2001, the album played a pivotal role in cementing Lopez's status as a global pop and R&B superstar, delivering chart-topping hits and, defining the sound of an era. The anniversary project is expected to feature remastered tracks alongside bonus materials for long-time fans. So I believe the fans are excited Since the announcement, excitement has surged online, with many celebrating the album's lasting impact on pop culture and its role in shaping Lopez's legacy as a multi-talented entertainer. Yes, like I said, the fans are super excited and they can't wait for that one as well. Well, that's all we have on entertainment tonight.
And finally tonight, News Central on Monday made a bold step in the right direction as Nigeria's fastest growing television station inaugurated members of its editorial board to fulfill its mandate and vision of fearlessly reporting on what matters the most in Nigeria and the African continent. News Central's Omolola Ololade captured it for us.
It is a great start to the year 2026 for the management of News Central Television, as the leadership of the leading news organization inaugurated a 7-man editorial board panel as part of its mandate to fulfilling its vision of fearlessly reporting what matters most in Nigeria and Africa, while evolving towards a world-class news organization. Some of the editorial board members include award-winning international journalist Femi Oke, South African entrepreneur and media executive Given Mkari, Executive Director of Enough is Enough Nigeria, Yemi Adamolekun, and a Nigerian lawyer and policy strategist, Dr. Sam Amadi. Others are human rights lawyer and activist Chidi Odinkalu, founder and chairman of ProShare Limited, Olufemi Awoyemi, and editor-in-chief and managing director of News Central Television, Kayode Akintemi.
As you assume this role, we charge you to uphold the Nigerian Broadcasting Code and the public trust that News Central has earned. We charge you to guide our editorial policy with courage, fairness, and independence, ensuring we remain a beacon of truth. I have full confidence in your collective judgment, experience, and integrity. And I believe your contributions will reinforce our mission to inform, educate, and hold power to account with clarity and responsibility.
So first, I want to welcome you to being on the board, editorial board of News Central Media Limited. As an organization, our vision is to make sure that we're recognized as the #1 and most trusted news television station on the continent of Africa. News Central is a people-first news station, keen on keeping our fingers on the pulse, and I like to do it that way, that we've got our finger on the pulse of the nation and that of the continent.
For the newly appointed board members, they commended the leadership of News Central for the timely decision, considering it a crucial time for the media space in Nigeria and Africa, especially as the country moves closer to a 2027 general election.
Constituting this entity, this editorial advisory, I introduced that deliberately, board, is both timely and courageous in many ways. And my hope is that we'll all accompany one another on a journey of faith and a journey of professionalism in the service of truth and of active civic curiosity.
What are the responsibilities of a board? And I can see from some of the challenges that other very established broadcast networks have had, is that when the journalism becomes tough and difficult to do and maybe comes under fire, is the board there to support the journalists?
Beyond introducing editorial board members, the inauguration became an opportunity for the management of News Central to remind its viewers of the mission and vision of the organization, while reaffirming its commitment to serving the people.
I'm definitely in charge of generating revenue for the organization, and of course positioning the organization and ensuring that we are rightly positioned, among our stakeholders. We are all about managing the business, growing the business, working hand in hand with individuals in different departments to ensure that we manage the brand and we grow the brand to the point whereby we just don't become an organization that is generating revenue, but become an organization that is making profits.
The inauguration of News Central's editorial board remains a remarkable milestone, as the management believe it's a call to keep pushing for responsible, solution-driven journalism that impacts Nigerians and Africans positively. In Lagos, for News Central, Omolola Ololade.
On that optimistic note, we wrap things up tonight. Please share your thoughts and eyewitness report with a number on your screen. You can do that as well by following us on all social media platforms at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and on YouTube. As always, thank you very much for your kind attention. Have a good night.